The Harrington house on Elmwood Lane looked like any other on the quiet suburban street. The windows glowed warmly in the evening dusk, and a soft hum of laughter floated from inside. To anyone passing by, the Harringtons seemed perfect. Daniel, the dependable accountant, Emily, the ever-attentive mother, Sophie, the 17-year-old high schooler with bright eyes and a curiosity that could fill a room, and Lucas, a quiet boy of 12 who loved drawing and comic books. Inside, Emily hummed while stirring spaghetti sauce. The rich aroma of garlic and tomatoes filled the kitchen. Lucas set the table, carefully placing the forks next to plates and adjusting napkins just the way his mother liked. Sophie was scrolling through her phone, earbuds tucked in, occasionally laughing at a meme she found amusing. Daniel leaned against the counter, sipping his coffee, a small smile playing on his lips. Life was ordinary. Safe, comfortable. Then a vibration cut through the soft domestic rhythm. Emily glanced at the counter. Daniel's phone had lit up, a single notification blinking in the dim light. She knew it was his phone. He never silenced it. Curiosity and a sudden, inexplicable unease made her step closer. Daniel noticed her movement, his eyes flicking toward the screen, and for the first time in years, something unreadable crossed his face, a flicker of tension. Emily saw the text. "I know what you did. Come alone or everything falls apart." The sender's name was missing, unknown, unfamiliar, and yet the words carried a weight that seemed to press against the walls of the cozy kitchen. Daniel chuckled, awkwardly. "Probably just some wrong number," he said, but the forced humor failed to mask the tension tightening his shoulders. Emily's stomach sank. She had learned long ago to trust her instincts. Something about that text, the timing, the tone, it screamed danger. She watched him for a moment, noticing his hands trembling slightly as he put down his coffee. He tried to act casual, leaning against the counter, but the faint quiver betrayed him. Dinner continued in silence. The soft clinking of utensils and distant sounds of traffic outside were all that filled the room. Sophie looked up from her phone, puzzled. "Mom? Dad? What's wrong?" "Nothing, sweetie," Emily replied quickly, forcing a smile, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something invisible had entered the room, hovering, waiting. After dinner, while Sophie retreated to her room and Lucas wandered off to sketch, Emily found herself alone with Daniel in the living room. She tried to meet his eyes, but he avoided hers, staring instead at the flickering light from the TV. "Daniel, what's going on?" Her voice was calm, but firm. He sighed, a long exhale that seemed to carry the weight of years. "It's nothing you need to worry about," he said, but the hesitation in his voice only made Emily more certain something terrible was hidden. Later that night, after tucking the children to bed, Emily returned to the kitchen. The house was quiet now, the kind of silence that feels alive, almost watching. Her curiosity, mixed with fear, drove her to Daniel's phone, left carelessly on the counter. Her hands shook as she unlocked it, a habit she had sworn never to indulge, but tonight she couldn't resist. And what she found made her heart pound so hard it felt like it would burst. Dozens of messages, threats, demands, photos of a woman she had never seen, places she didn't recognize, all labeled with dates spanning years. Every message carried the same chilling undertone: "I know what you did. You can't hide forever." Emily felt as if the floor had fallen out under her. She backed away, the phone slipping slightly from her grasp, and for a moment the room spun. She realized that Daniel had a secret, a dangerous one, one that now threatened everything they had built. Her mind raced. How could the man she had married, the father of her children, had been living a lie so profound? And who was sending these messages? Was it someone seeking justice, revenge, or something even darker? Sleep eluded her. She lay in bed beside Daniel, pretending to rest, while her mind replayed the images from the phone over and over. She noticed him stir beside her, mumbling something she couldn't catch. Was he dreaming, or was he haunted by the same fear she now carried? By the time dawn crept over the horizon, Emily knew she couldn't wait any longer. She had to confront him. She had to know the truth before the weight of the secret crushed them all. As the first rays of sunlight filtered through the blinds, she gently shook him awake. "Daniel, we need to talk. Now." He opened his eyes, red-rimmed from lack of sleep, and for a moment there was a flicker of fear in his expression, the same fear she had felt when reading the texts. Emily took a deep breath. "No more lies, no more hiding. Tell me everything." Daniel looked away, his jaw tightening. "Emily, it's not as simple as you think." Her voice dropped, almost a whisper, but edged with steel. "Try me." He closed his eyes, running his hair through his hair. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Outside, the world continued unaware, birds chirping, traffic humming, oblivious to the storm about to break inside the Harrington home. The first secret, the first truth was about to come out, and Emily knew whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same again. Because sometimes one single message is enough to destroy everything. The morning sunlight crept through the blinds, painting stripes across the kitchen floor. Emily stood rigid, her hands clasped tightly around her mug, though the coffee inside had gone cold long ago. Across the table, Daniel stared at the floor, his fingers tracing imaginary patterns on the wood, avoiding her gaze. Emily's voice cut through the silence. "Daniel, no more hiding. I need the truth. Everything. Now." Daniel's jaw tightened. He exhaled slowly, like a man who had carried a burden for decades. "Emily, it's complicated. I never wanted you to know. I never wanted the kids to know. But it's true. Years ago, before Sophie was born, I was involved in an accident, a hit and run. I didn't stop." Emily felt her stomach lurch. The words barely registered at first, then sank like a stone. "You what?" "I hit someone with my car. She was just walking, and it was dark, rainy night." His voice trembled, cracking under the weight of the confession. "I panicked. I didn't call the police. I buried it, and I've been hiding it ever since." Emily's hands shook, and the mug slipped slightly from her grip, shattering on the tile. The sound made her jump, but neither of them moved to clean it up. She could only stare, trying to process what she had just heard. "And the messages?" Emily's voice was barely a whisper. "The texts? The photos?" Daniel flinched. "It's him, Mark Reynolds. He's her brother. He's been watching me, tracking me. I guess he finally decided I need to pay." Emily's mind raced. Her perfect life was unraveling, piece by piece, and the thread had been pulled taut by a single text. "And he wants what? Money? Revenge?" "Both," Daniel admitted, finally meeting her eyes. "And I don't think he's bluffing. He said he wants me to meet him tonight, alone, or he'll go to the police and the media. Everything, the house, the kids, our lives, it will be exposed." Emily felt a chill run through her spine. "And you were going to go? Just alone?" Daniel's lips tightened. "I thought I could handle it. Maybe reason with him." Emily shook her head, anger flaring alongside fear. "No, you're not going alone. Not tonight, not ever. This is bigger than both of us. He could hurt you, or worse." Before Daniel could respond, Sophie appeared in the doorway. Her hair was disheveled from a restless night, and her eyes were wide. "Mom, Dad, what's happening? Why do you look like everything's wrong?" Emily's heart ached. How could she protect Sophie and Lucas from the truth when she barely understood it herself? "Nothing, honey. It's grown-up stuff. Go back to your room." Sophie hesitated, suspicion written across her face. Emily could see the gears turning, the detective-like curiosity that was all too familiar. Sophie had a knack for uncovering things adults tried to hide. She wouldn't let this go. Later that morning, while Daniel sat at his desk, running through numbers and documents in a desperate attempt to seem calm, Sophie quietly pulled out her laptop. Her fingers danced over the keyboard, searching for news articles from years ago, searching for anything about an unsolved hit and run in their city. And she found it. A headline stared back at her. "Young woman killed in hit and run. Case remains open. Suspect unknown." Sophie's breath caught. She read through the story, noting details about the victim, age, clothing, location, and slowly, terrifyingly, the pieces began to fall into place. Her father. The realization made her stomach twist. She wanted to scream, to confront him, but a small, rational voice inside told her, not yet. She needed proof, and she had to be careful. Meanwhile, Emily paced the living room, phone in hand, trying to contact anyone who could give advice, the police, lawyers, anyone. But she knew this was personal. If Daniel went tonight, alone, there was no guarantee he'd return. Daniel walked past her, pale and quiet, muttering to himself, "I have to fix this. I can't let the kids' lives be ruined. I can't let Emily's life be ruined. I can't." Emily stopped him, grabbing his arm. "Daniel, listen to me. You are not going alone. Mark Reynolds is dangerous. This is no longer just about guilt. This is about your life, our lives." Daniel looked at her, the weight of years, fear, and shame etched into his face. "I know, but he wants the truth. He wants me to pay. I thought if I went alone, maybe—" His voice broke. Emily's chest tightened. She realized then that this wasn't just about punishment. Mark wanted revenge, pure, unfiltered, angry revenge. And revenge didn't care about families, kids, or innocence. By late afternoon, Emily had made a decision. She would follow Daniel. She couldn't let him face Mark alone, no matter what. And yet, she didn't tell him. She needed to watch, to make sure he was safe, and to see if there was any way to prevent the inevitable. As evening fell, the storm began. Clouds thickened over the city, the wind rattling the windows. Rain tapped insistently against the roof, a relentless rhythm that matched the pounding of Emily's heart. Mark sent another text. "Tonight, the bridge. Come alone. You have until midnight." Daniel read it and clenched his fists. Emily, watching from the kitchen doorway, saw the determination in his eyes and the fear. He had made his choice. Emily didn't move. She watched him prepare. Wallet, keys, coat, phone, every detail meticulous, like he was preparing for a war. But Emily knew one thing for certain. He was unarmed, unprepared for the rage he was about to meet. She felt Sophie's eyes on her from across the room, watching silently. Sophie had seen the tension, had read the news, had pieced together the fragments of the family's shattered secret. Emily knew she couldn't shield the children forever, but tonight she had to try, even if it meant stepping into danger herself. As Daniel walked out into the storm, Emily grabbed her own coat, shivering from more than the cold. The night ahead was uncertain, dangerous, filled with shadows, secrets, and the possibility of death. And Emily knew that once this night was over, nothing would ever be the same. The first threads of truth had been pulled, and the fabric of their family was already beginning to tear. Because some secrets, once revealed, bleed into everything, and sometimes they can never be stopped. The storm had grown fiercer by the time Daniel drove toward the abandoned bridge on the outskirts of the city. Rain hammered against the windshield, making it hard to see, and the wind whistled through the trees like a warning. Each flash of lightning illuminated the empty road ahead, stark and haunting, revealing glimpses of puddles and twisted branches. Emily followed from a distance, her own car's headlights dimmed. She gripped the steering wheel so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Her heart pounded in her chest. Every instinct screamed at her, This is dangerous. He cannot face him alone. Daniel's face, illuminated briefly by the dashboard, was pale and tight with anxiety. He was silent, his eyes darting nervously to the rearview mirror and the dark shadows along the roadside. Every street lamp they passed flickered like a heartbeat counting down to the inevitable. Mark Reynolds had been clear. Come alone or the world will know. Those words weren't just threats, they were promises, and Emily knew promises like that were never empty. When Daniel arrived at the bridge, the scene was almost surreal. The steel structure loomed in the storm, slick with rain and reflecting the flickering glow of distant streetlights. The river below roared with white-capped waves, dark and angry, as if mirroring the tension that now gripped the night. Mark was already there, his figure barely visible through the sheets of rain, a dark silhouette standing rigidly near the bridge's edge. The knife in his hand caught a flash of lightning, gleaming ominously. Daniel stepped out of the car, his coat clinging to his body from the rain. His heart hammered in his chest. He tried to speak calmly, raising his hand slightly. "Mark, please, let's talk. You don't have to do this." Mark laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "Talk? You took everything from me. My sister, my life. You think words can fix that?" His grip on the knife tightened. "I've waited years, and tonight you pay." Daniel's stomach sank. "Mark, I know I was wrong. I should have—" "You should have?" Mark shouted, advancing a step, rain dripping off his hair and face, making him look almost otherworldly. "She's gone, and you want me to believe you're sorry?" The tension exploded like the storm itself. Daniel tried to back away, slipping slightly on the wet pavement. Mark lunged. The knife came down, flashing in the lightning, aimed with deadly precision. Daniel grabbed his arm, twisting and wrestling, but the storm made every movement treacherous. Emily, from her car, could barely breathe. She wanted to rush forward to save him, but the bridge was narrow, slick, and dangerous. If she intervened, they could all fall. Her instincts screamed at her to call the police, but with each passing second, she realized the danger wasn't just physical. It was about secrets, rage, and the culmination of years of anger. The struggle intensified. Daniel's coat tore, hands scraped against steel, and Mark's grip was unrelenting. Lightning illuminated their faces, Daniel's etched with desperation, Mark's with fury and grief. The knife glinted again as it made another swing. "Stop! Mark, please!" Daniel shouted, voice cracking with fear. Mark hesitated just for a second, as if the sound of Daniel's voice and the pounding storm reminded him of the humanity he had left behind. That moment of hesitation was all it took. A slip, a sudden wet misstep on the rain-slicked steel. The knife plunged. Daniel screamed, a gut-wrenching, raw sound that tore through the night, echoing across the water. He fell to his knees, clutching his side, blood soaking through his coat. Emily's chest tightened, a scream caught in her throat. She slammed the car door and ran forward, slipping in the rain, heart racing, lungs burning. She reached him just as Mark, wide-eyed with shock at what he'd done, stumbled backward into the shadows, disappearing into the night. Daniel's breaths were shallow, ragged. "Emily, it's bad," he whispered, blood dripping from his mouth. His hands shook violently as he tried to steady himself. Emily sank beside him, pressing her hands to his wound, but the blood was warm, insistent, unstoppable. "No, stay with me, Daniel. Don't you dare leave me." Her voice trembled as she tried to keep him conscious. Daniel's eyes met hers, something between fear, regret, and sorrow reflected in them. I tried to fix it. For you, for the kids. I didn't want it to end like this." Emily's tears mixed with the rain as she held him close. It doesn't have to end. You'll be okay, I swear. Stay with me." But the storm outside seemed to mock her. The wind howled, the river roared below, and the lights flickered. Daniel's hand went limp in hers. Sophie, awake at home, heard the distant wail of sirens. Something deep inside her told her it wasn't just the storm. She ran to the window, heart racing, and saw the flashing lights in the distance. A terrible premonition settled over her chest. She knew before anyone told her that something had gone horribly wrong. Police and paramedics arrived minutes later, though it felt like hours. Emily could only stand back, soaked, trembling, holding Daniel's bloodied coat in her hands. He was gone. The storm and the night had claimed him. Mark had vanished into the darkness. The rain washed away footprints, erased evidence, leaving only chaos, grief, and shock in its wake. The bridge, once a symbol of isolation, now felt like a monument to tragedy. Daniel's last words echoed in Emily's mind. "I didn't want it to end like this." Emily's gaze turned towards the river, where the water churned and frothed, indifferent to human pain. She felt Sophie and Lucas in her mind, their safety, their innocence, everything she had tried to protect, slipping away in the wake of one text, one decision, one moment of revenge. The night had changed everything. The Harrington family, once seemingly perfect, was fractured, broken, and no one knew how to pick up the pieces. The first threads of truth had been pulled, but the consequences were far worse than anyone could have imagined. Secrets had spilled into reality with a brutal, irreversible force. Emily sank to the cold steel of the bridge, rain mixing with tears and blood, and whispered a single vow. She would survive, for Sophie, for Lucas, and to face whatever came next. Because when a secret this big explodes, there is no going back. There is only forward, into grief, chaos, and the unknown consequences of the night that destroyed everything. The Harrington home was silent the next morning. Not the calm, comforting silence of routine, but the heavy, suffocating silence of absence. The laughter that had once filled the kitchen was gone. The smells of breakfast, pancakes, toast, coffee, hung in the air, cold and lifeless, untouched. Emily sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at the empty chair where Daniel used to sit. His coat, still damp from the storm, lay draped over the back of the chair, a cruel reminder of the night that had destroyed everything. Sophie pressed close to her mother, her small body trembling. "Mom, is he gone?" Her voice was barely audible, fragile as porcelain. Emily swallowed, her throat tight. "Yes, honey, he's gone." She wrapped Sophie in her arms, feeling the weight of the world pressing down on them. Lucas sat at the other end of the table, silent, drawing on scraps of paper, his head down. The boy hadn't spoken since the night before. He hadn't cried. He only drew, lines, shapes, shadows, as if trying to process the unthinkable through art. The police arrived in waves, filling the home with questioning, cameras, and notebooks. Emily answered as best she could, recounting the events of the night, Daniel's confession, Mark Reynolds' threats, and the confrontation at the bridge. She kept her voice steady, but inside she was breaking. Every word felt like a betrayal of Daniel, every pause a confession of her own helplessness. Detectives pieced together the story from the wreckage, Daniel's past hit and run, Mark's decades-long obsession with revenge, and the fateful confrontation on the bridge. Evidence, though minimal due to the storm, corroborated Emily's account. The police understood immediately that Mark's actions were deliberate and fueled by grief, but also by a desire to destroy the life of the man who had stolen his sister's future. Media coverage followed fast. Headlines screamed about the tragic murder, the unpunished hit and run, and the Harrington family's involvement. The same family that had been the picture of suburban perfection was now dissected under the glare of public scrutiny. Sophie tried to go to school, but whispers followed her everywhere. Friends who had once laughed with her now avoided her. Teachers gave awkward glances. Every step felt like walking through invisible judgment. She felt trapped by a tragedy she had no control over, her father dead, her family broken, and her own innocence stolen. Lucas became withdrawn, retreating into his art. He stopped speaking entirely, communicating only through sketches. Emily tried to coax him back, to pull him from the darkness, but the trauma had wrapped around him like chains. He didn't cry, he didn't scream. He simply existed in silence, staring at the world as though it had betrayed him. Emily, meanwhile, sank into her own despair. Nights were the worst. She lay awake, haunted by Daniel's final words, haunted by the storm, haunted by the sight of Mark's knife flashing in the lightning. She replayed every moment of that night in her mind, questioning what she could have done differently, how she could have saved him, and whether the choices she made had doomed them all. Weeks passed. Mark Reynolds was eventually caught. The police had tracked him down to a nearby town, trying to flee, still holding on to the rage and grief that had driven him to murder. His trial became a media spectacle, but the focus had shifted away from him and onto the Harrington family, whose story, the confession, the blackmail, and the tragedy made headlines. Emily testified, recounting the horrors of that night. She spoke of fear, of desperate attempts to protect her family, and of the terrible truth she had uncovered. But even her words, as powerful as they were, couldn't shield Sophie or Lucas from the fallout. The house that had once been warm and full of life was sold. The Harringtons moved to a distant town, attempting to escape the whispers and judgment of a community that could no longer see them as innocent. Yet no distance could erase the memory of that night. No new house, no new street, no time could undo what had been done. Years later, Sophie stood at her father's grave, a bouquet of lilies in hand. The sky was gray, the wind cold, carrying with it the echo of the storm that had claimed him. She traced the letters of his name on the headstone, her fingers trembling. "I miss you," she whispered, her voice breaking. I wish things had been different. I wish—" Emily and Lucas stood behind her, silent, shadows of the family they had once been. Emily's eyes glistened with tears, but she forced herself to be strong for the children, even as her heart broke. Lucas didn't speak. He never spoke when they visited the grave. He only stared, holding his sketchbook to his chest, drawings of bridges, storms, and shadows filling its pages. Even after Mark was sentenced and the trial concluded, the scars remained. The truth, once revealed, could not be hidden again. The Harrington family, fractured by one text, one past mistake, and one act of revenge, would never be whole. Sophie turned toward her mother and brother. "Some messages, some secrets, they can destroy everything," she said quietly. Her voice was measured, but there was a hard edge in it, a knowledge beyond her years. Emily nodded, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Yes," she whispered, "some things are never meant to be uncovered. Some truths bleed into everything, and nothing will ever be the same." Lucas finally lifted his eyes from his sketchbook. For a moment there was recognition, a flicker of connection. But even then the silence returned, a reminder that some wounds never heal. As they left the cemetery, Emily glanced back at the gravestone, at the name of the man who had been their husband, their father, now lost to them forever. She knew they would move forward. They had to, but the shadow of that night, the message that started it all, and the blood that had been spilled would follow them always. Because some secrets, once revealed, do not stay buried. They echo, they destroy, and they leave nothing untouched. The Harrington family had survived, but survival came at a cost far greater than anyone could imagine. and in the distance the river continued to roar, dark and indifferent, as though it too remembered the storm that had destroyed everything.